Hey, I started to say good morning. Happy Sunday. Happy October 27th. Um, this is the last Sunday in the month of October. Ugh, October! Where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you trying to get up out of here so fast? What is going on? I could only suspect that there's something good and great and wonderful coming in November since October wants to get up out of here so fast, so quickly. Hey, y'all. I am Coach Yolanda, international spiritual life coach, owner of a wellness business that includes coaching, that includes being a birth doula, that includes being a Reiki master and teacher, that includes meditation, public speaking, dot. And I'm grateful to be with you guys this Sunday. I should also say, creator of the Evolved online soulful spiritual community. um, we did not have prayer this morning because Mama was tired. Yesterday, I had the privilege of attending two celebrations of life, two individuals who have transitioned on to the next experience. And I had the privilege of attending both of those, one in New Jersey, one in Virginia, on the same day. So the driving for someone who doesn't really care for driving and who doesn't drive on a daily basis, it was a lot. We got through. Thankful to an amazing partner, my beloved, and music, great music. You know, with great music and an amazing partner, there is nothing that cannot be accomplished. Happy Sunday. We're going to come back to that. I'm having to reparent myself from birth. Ooh, and you do. We are going to come back to that. Let me highlight that for right now because we're going to come back to that. Thank you, Marissa. Um, and if that just downloaded into your spirit, trust it, follow it, and know it to be sent at the time that you needed to receive it. Which is why I'm late, y'all, because there are so many notes that I have continuously been writing about reparenting. I don't know that we can encompass everything in one setting. It may be, and I think it is, um, you know, it's something that we need to continue because healing is continuous. This conversation should be continuous. Oh, divine timing. Yeah. Even though I was late because again, there's so much. Like I got a board over here, I got a notebook here, I got sticky notes all over the place because the thoughts around this subject of reparenting ourselves is so vast. It is deserving, I think, of further conversation. And so we'll talk about what that looks like. This topic came directly from a question posed by Tea Time Beauty, who is a frequent live viewer, and hopefully they will be able to come on since this topic was birthed, no pun intended, by them. I would invite all of you, if you didn't join last year, where we did a complete year of inner child healing, if there are specific age, developmental ages and stages that you would like to repair or restore, reparent, I invite you to go a little bit further back into the Mama Meditations videos because they were directly related to specific developmental age. And we didn't even start at birth, Marissa. We started at conception. So your reparenting may even need to go back to your conception. And often, very, very often, you don't know or don't have the complete story. You get the Cliff Notes. If anyone is old enough to remember Cliff Notes, for those of you who are not old enough to remember Cliff Notes, um, some great organization said, you know what, y'all don't want to read all of Shakespeare's completed works. You don't want to read War and Peace. You don't want to read the Iliad and all of the things that we were told we needed to read throughout our study. So somebody came along, condensed the plot and the character development of individuals in fiction, hence, and called them Cliff Notes. And they got to a point where you would get in trouble because teachers got crafty and understood that these kids are going to be using the Cliff Notes. And so they would even tell you from the beginning, I'm going to be giving you assignments. And if you use Cliff Notes, I will know that you've used the Cliff Notes. They didn't know. It was just a threat. We believed the threat. And yet, and still, I am grateful for Cliff Notes for condensing things. And so, um, again, this topic is so vast. There are so many different resources available to us when we are reading things or gathering information to support us in reparenting. I would invite you to just take a look at the previous Mama Meditations. Like I said, 2023, we did an entire year of inner child healing. But that does not come without a sticky note about where you go to get your information. Once again, my fascination with cults has come into play. I was just watching another documentary about a cult and how it's so easy for any one of us, for those of us who think, oh, I would never fall into a cult. We have. Sometimes the cult is your very family where you know, believe everything that your family tells you. And because we're talking about reparenting, I think it's important for us to put this in the atmosphere that sometimes your family can be a cult. They say things, they ask you to do things that doesn't align with who you are. We are getting ready to come into the holidays where people are going to be doing rituals, gathering for meals, going out to get a treat, whatever the ritual or traditions in your family may or may not be, we are going into that season where that is going to start to amp up and ramp up. And if you are on a healing journey and very intentional about that healing journey and not disrupting your healing journey, and what your family traditionally doesn't align with who you are, it may be challenging for you. So this could not come at a better time. My sticky note is a reminder that wherever you go for information, even if it is right here in the words coming out of my mouth, make sure you are extracting the information, but not aligning your beliefs to someone else's. And what that means is just because you read it, just because you say it's said by people that you admire and that inspire or encourage you, if it doesn't align with who you believe yourself to be very careful of taking everything as the gospel. There are so many books that I'm looking at right now on my bookshelf that contain so much information that has been very, very helpful to me. And within those same books, there is information that I'm like, that doesn't align with who I know myself to be or who I desire to be. So I am not going to extract that bit of information. I'm going to leave that where it is. You know, if there is a book and within the book it says, oh, you have to, make nice with your abuser, that does not align with the me that I desire to be. And so therefore, I'm going to leave that bit of information wherever it is. And so the more that I watch these documentaries, and they tease apart why people get drawn into cults, it makes absolutely it makes sense to me how it happens. The most intelligent people who may be um, seeking something for their mental and emotional well-being can absolutely fall into um, cult-like organizations, societies, and communities. It's very easy when there is something that you are seeking and longing for, and you think it's being provided. It is very easy to be pulled in and to be pulled under before you recognize it. And so I just want to make sure that as we are talking to one another, as you are gathering information, that's right, dissect it like you are a surgeon, because the information that you are processing is going into your consciousness. So please use the discernment. I am watching a documentary right now, and I'm looking at these loving individuals who only wanted the best for themselves, who really were seeking love, community, support, and now they're retelling the story, and it's heartbreaking because not only did they not get what they were seeking, now they have to heal from the damage that happened and try to figure out, how do I still get those things that I was seeking? When now I'm afraid because I thought that I was safe in this particular environment. So that's my caveat. Even today, I'm going to talk about particular books that have been helpful to me, but they come with a disclaimer: discern, discern, discern. If something sounds too good to be true, if someone says to you, listen, you come on board with me, and in 90 days, all your dreams are going to be fulfilled, run for the hills. Run for the hills. However, it can be harder to run when your ear is tuned into what feels like love and support and all of the things that all of us not only desire but we need. People are really fulfilling a need in these cults. They're fulfilling a need. They know that. That is part of the reason why the language sounds the way it does, but then the behavior shifts. That's why from the very beginning it sounds like this is exactly what I've been looking for. Of course, it sounds like that because predators will use whatever you love to pull you in. I don't care if it's a fisherman trying to catch a fish or a guru trying to catch, a community. So please use your discernment. We deserve it. We need it. Yes, that we need these things. We need care, we need affection. And if you feel like you've been starved of that, baby, anyone saying magical words will look like water in the desert. So please, 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 hey my love, how are you? Please, 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 let's keep our discernment on high, but also let's tell ourselves the truth, because I believe that within all of this information that I have gathered across my lifespan, there are some gems in there that have helped me greatly. Me coming on here every Sunday, I'm very, very mindful of the potential for me to say something and that it reaches someone's ear and it changes their perception or the way they think and feel about themselves. And so, as we get ready to talk about reparenting, that's one of the key messages that I want every single one of us to think about, is that as we continue to do our soul work, you may recognize, you may acknowledge that you have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how other people feel in regards to who you are. And we expend a lot of energy about how we feel about other people, how they feel about us, how we look to other people. Are we making them happy? We generate a lot of energy around. And a lot of this comes from childhood because children are smart enough to know one of the ways that I can be safe is by being compliant, is by being good, is by being favorable. If you've ever seen little people compete for attention, and sometimes they will throw their little toddler buddies under the bus by saying, look at what they're doing. They're not being good. They love to throw their little friends under the bus, all in an attempt to be seen as favorable. Like I'm with you. I don't want that little one to be acting up either, but I'm going to show you when they are acting up because then I can be in your good graces. It's part of that survival mentality that is inherent to us being human. And so we expend a lot of energy making sure that we're favorable to other people, like we are clear about how they feel about us. You know, how many times have you had a conversation with someone? How do you feel about us? How are we good? Are we on good terms? We worry about that. When you are doing your soul work, how you feel about yourself is going to be the determining factor of how well you navigate all of the experiences in your life. How do you feel and think about yourself? So, as we are talking about reparenting, let's keep the focus on I want to know how I feel about me, not I'm trying to right the wrongs of my parents, my caregivers. I'm trying to see them in a favorable light. I'm trying to make them to be what I need them to be because a lot of that will happen. Ask me how I know. One of the things that my parents taught me about life, whether it was their intention or not, is to keep secrets and to make sure everything looks like everything is good. And so, what that taught me is that no one is a villain, and that even when people have treated me badly, I found a way to ignore it or reframe it in a way that doesn't make them look like the villain, but we could still be friends. It was all about, but I still want to be your friend. Yeah, you did something harmful to me, so I want to be your friend. The other end of that spectrum is I don't want to be friends with anyone because people are not trustworthy. And so that's technically the same thing. It's either one end of the spectrum or the other. And that is also a spiritual law that we'll talk about some other time, but it's the same energy. Whew, child. Will have you retelling the story where nobody looks like the original. It doesn't look like the original story. But that's what I learned from my family. We keep secrets. Everything is good over here. Let's dress nicely so people don't know we might not have food in the refrigerator, but we all look good. You know, let's make the outside of the house look warm and inviting so people don't recognize that there's some trauma going on in here. You know, that is a staple for many households. Don't tell nobody what's going on, outside in the street. But boy, if you work in a child care center, you hear about it all the time. I'm telling you, y'all kids are telling all of your business. And every time a little person tells me every little thing that's going on in their life, I'm like, your mama did not teach you the lesson that I learned growing up, which is we don't talk about what goes on in this household. Everything is good, is lovely. And so, what that teaches all of us to do is to romanticize things, retell the story again so that there's no villains, and for many of us, it can also feel like, and I've said this before, that if we tell the truth about some of the things that happened in our life, it feels like we are betraying people that we love. I love my mother and father till the cows come home. And I grew up in a loving environment. I really did. But it was not without its dysfunction. It was not without its trauma. It was not without secrets and things that if other people knew were going on, I know CPS would have probably been at our front door. And that may be true for you. Was it all bad? Absolutely not. And if there was a lottery where we could choose other parents, I wouldn't choose any other two people exactly as they are. But it has taken a lot of soul work for me to get to that point. Um, right now, if I had three wishes, one of those wishes would be that those two people were still on this earth. That's how much I love them and have gotten to a level of compassion and forgiveness for the things that they didn't do, the things that they gave, didn't give, all of those things. It takes a lot of work to get to that point. And I am at that point without gaslighting myself and without retelling the truth so that they don't look like villains, because they weren't. For me, they weren't. They were at one point in time when I got to the point where I was like, I am no longer willing to save people in my story just to make me, not want to have to deal with the trauma, because that's what really happens. When we don't want to deal with the trauma, then no one can be a villain. No one can be bad. And I did that for a long time. I did it in romantic relationships where I knew people were doing things that they should not be doing, but I dismissed it or always found a reason why they were, making excuses for people who were never going to make an excuse for me. And when I got tired of that, I went to the other extreme. Everybody's shady. No one can be trusted. I don't want to connect with anyone. So we can vacillate between the two. And again, we'll talk at some other time about why those are actually the same vibration when we are operating in extremes. But when we can come to what we've talked about before, a point of neutrality, where it's not one thing or another thing, it's all of the things, right? It's not black and white. It's some gray, it's some purple, it's some blue, it's all of the things. And I believe that doing soul work gets you to the point where you are willing to acknowledge and accept a myriad of truths, right? It's like, I love my mama, but boy, there were some things that she did not teach me about being in relationships that I wish I had learned at an early age. I love my father, but boy, there were some things that he taught me about being a man that I have now got to unpack and unlearn. And I wish I didn't have to do that. But here we are doing the work. And so I wanted to make that disclaimer, use your discernment. I also want to make the disclaimer that some of us may not be at a point where we can be neutral. And that's okay too. Sometimes we will retell the story and everybody is a villain. And perhaps when we are doing that, we can get to a point that says, is this true or is this what I need? Because oftentimes those are two very different things. Now, we all need the truth, but sometimes we don't need the truth right now. Sometimes, in order for us to get to the truth, we have to be able to see the story we are telling ourselves or the version of truths that we are willing to believe at that particular time. But that is why I said use your discernment and also be open to be wrong. I spent years thinking a particular thing about my dad, only to discover that I was so wrong in the way that I was judging him and how I was holding the energy of our relationship. However, I needed it. I needed it at that time. I needed him to be the villain because I don't think I would have ever gotten to a place where I wasn't holding him accountable. As I said early on, no one was a villain. And then everyone was a villain. And if I didn't have both of those experiences, I may not have ever been able to come to a conclusion that There are some things that are true, and there are some things that I needed at that moment. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I still have my diary from when I was a little girl. I got this diary, and I think I've pulled it out before. I got this diary, and the first entry is January 2nd, 1983. Oh my goodness. Over 20 years ago. So this this was part of my therapy. Now, did we know that this was therapeutic when we were younger, when we had journals? And I never, well, I did have a journal. I don't know what happened to it. Remember the journals that had the little lock and key? Clearly, this did not have a lock and key, and I did catch my brother in this diary several times. But this was therapeutic when we were younger, and we didn't know it. We needed to get that stuff out, and it came out. And when I read this diary now, again, if someone else got their hands on this diary, CPS, Child Protective Services, would have been at my front door based upon the way that I was expressing what was going on in my life. Now, as I'm reading it as an adult, I'm like, baby, that is not what was going on. That's not the truth. But that's the truth that I needed at that time to be able to express myself until I got the language to do it in an appropriate way. But let me tell you how there are more than one hit list in this diary, because that was the level of anger that I carried when I was younger. At times, I literally wanted people to die because they had hurt me. And sometimes the offenses were not even egregious. It could have been, one of my friends didn't want to sit next to me at lunchtime. She got to die. You know what I mean? I want the worst for her. But when you're 10 years old, that feels like the end of your world. That feels like. So that's why I said sometimes people are the villain. Sometimes the story is not true. So as we are engaging in reparenting activities, let's make sure that we are acknowledging that not everything that happened when we were younger, we are telling it from a point of truth. We are telling it from the level of understanding of whatever age you were at that particular point. Don't gaslight yourself. Don't lie to yourself, but you also have to tell the truth. So I'm grateful that I have this documentation of some of the things that unfolded for me, but it also shows me that even at an early age, I was dramatic. Even at an early, tender age, I had the gift of dramatization of events. I can look at them now differently. However, I feel for the little girl who wrote some of the things that she felt she needed to write, that she felt that she needed to express, because that also tells me it was intense for me at that moment. And that intensity doesn't go away. Now, I can look at it differently, but it doesn't mean that it goes away. So even if you are unable to have documentation of particular events and particular things that were going on in your life, it still doesn't mean that you can't, again, dissect and tell the truth, use discernment. Your 10-year-old self, your 8-year-old self, your 12-year-old self absolutely believed what they believed, and that should be supported. But as mature individuals, make sure that we are telling the truth, because two things can be true. It was intense and hurtful and harmful then. However, with more maturity under my belt, I see it differently. But I can still grieve for that 10-year-old girl that had to go through some of the things that she had to go through, because it's real. And it creates a thumbprint that follows you, it creates an imprint that follows you. Okay. So, one of the tools, because I believe books are tools, again, um, did y'all know that hammers have more than one function? So, if you have a hammer, know what a hammer looks like, you know that there's one side that we use to hammer nails in. But on the back of it, on the back of that tool, there is a little notch that will take the nails out. So that tool, that one tool, has two uses. And books can be looked upon that way, podcasts, any kind of medium where you are extracting information can be looked upon as a tool. Like I may take some things or I might use this tool in one way and I may not use it in another way. I can't tell you how many books that I have space for comments or quizzes or assessments in them that I've never taken because I don't necessarily need that book for that particular purpose. Okay. So this is one of the books. It was on the syllabus when I went through my spiritual life coaching journey. It's called The Power of TED. It doesn't have anything to do with TED Talks. It's just an acronym for the empowerment dynamic. The Power of TED by David Emerald. And what essentially the empowerment dynamic is exactly what we've been talking about over and over and over, where you have a story, you have an experience in your life, and it can create a drama triangle. And there have been so many graphics about the triangle where someone is the victim, someone is the villain, and someone is the hero. And it doesn't have to be an actual person. It could be a person, a place, or an experience where someone is the victim. Most of the time, it's us. Someone is the villain. Most of the time, it's someone that we know, but it could be an unknown entity that feels like racism can absolutely be the villain that is operating in your life. So victim, villain, and hero. What this book attempts to do is empower that relationship by reframing the different dynamics of um, the drama triangle. And so I'm not going to give everything away, but it has been a helpful tool, just a tool, in terms of me reframing particular things in my life where I no longer feel like a victim because that's not energy that I want to hold. And so the victim um, becomes a creator. And this is so in line with what we talked about last week in terms of the law of cause and effect and how the way we think, the way we feel becomes is a creation, is a cause. And so the victim in that triangle becomes the creator. The villain becomes the challenger. It's reframing, it's using different language. So instead of the person that hurt and harmed you being labeled as a villain, you use the terminology challenger. Okay? Challenger. And then the hero in that dynamic becomes a coach. Instead of the hero, we call that person, place, or thing or experience a coach. It's something that taught you something, something that guided you something. So that's just one of the tools. But there are things in this book that I just extracted particular information because if you take this as the gospel, you could very well get into an energy of gaslighting yourself. Sometimes you can reframe so much that it's so far off from the original story. It's more like the intention or the motivation is to make everyone look helpful, and that's something that we don't want to do. We want to caution ourselves with that as well. um, I am very clear about particular things that have happened in my life and the position that individuals who might be involved, the position they hold. I'm clear about that now. I wasn't always clear. So if, I've had experiences where people actually physically harm me, and I used to see them as the villain, And then at one point in time, when I was trying to be nice and kind to everybody, I saw them as my challenge. Well, they were just a challenge, that was sent to me to teach me something. Right? I went to that extreme. I'm more at the part of a little bit of one thing and a little bit of the other. Like you were a bad person. You did some bad things. I completely have compassion for myself and compassion for you to understand that we may have been victimized in our past and then our paths crossed. And it was a nasty mix that created an experience that traumatized me. I don't know what it did for you, but it traumatized me. Um, but I don't want to hold that energy of feeling like a victim, of every time I see you, I feel like I want to choke you. I don't want to hold that energy. I don't want that to be my guiding principle. So I can hold you accountable for what you did and also have a level of compassion that says what you did is probably what you learned in your lifetime and how to deal with people and how to interact with people. And there's a little bit of sadness behind that if you think that that makes you a good person or that makes you honorable or whatever you think it makes you. I can have a little slice of that too. And I can also understand that there are absolutely things that I can learn from the situation, but I don't ever want to have that situation happen to me again. I love learning. I absolutely love learning. I am a lifelong learner. There are some lessons I don't ever want to go through again. Someone putting their hands on me, I tell you right now, I don't ever have to go through that experience again to learn something. I got all that I needed to get. And what it has created for me is an understanding of where my boundaries need to be so solid and so concrete that I don't fall prey to that type of thinking again. So, along with the discernment, we also have to use our divine intelligence. Now, I believe it was last week, or it may have been in one of the prayers that is posted in the Evolved community, where I've used the terminology divine intelligence as also meaning God, the energy of what we believe God to be is aligned with divine intelligence. If I say the universe, if I say life force giving energy, divine intelligence, right? Part of reparenting is going to call you to the carpet where you may have to decide, did the divine intelligence get it wrong? Meaning, did God give me to people who did not appreciate me, love me, or raise me in the way that I deserve? At some point in time, if you continue to do your soul work, you may have to answer that question. It might not be posed that way, but it will come up. Because as we are reparenting ourselves and remembering particular things, there may be a story somewhere in your spirit where you say, my caregivers did not give me what I needed. That's why I am where I am in my life. Is there some truth to that? Absolutely. However, and I will use myself as an example, as I've been doing my soul work and learning more about trauma and seeing my parents, all of my caregivers, all of the adults whose responsibility it was to develop me, I have come to the conclusion that if particular things did not happen the way that they happened, I wouldn't be who I am today. Even if it means that I also tell the story that there are particular things that those people did not do such a great job with. I have gotten to a point of emotional, spiritual, and mental maturity where I can see both of those things equally. And I am not willing to say or to hold the energy that the divine intelligence got something wrong. that I was given to the wrong parents, that I lived a life that I should not have lived, that someone should have come in and saved me, that the people who gave birth to me missed the boat, and therefore that's why my life is horrible and they are to blame. At some point in time in your soul work, and particularly if you are going to go back and look at the way in which you developed as a child, you are going to have to answer the question: are you saying that the divine intelligence got it wrong and somehow the stork took you to somebody's house that you should not have gone to? And particularly for those of us who have had extremely traumatic childhoods, I would not classify my childhood experiences as deeply traumatic. Someone else, if I told them some of the things that happened in my childhood, could be like, girl, how the heck did you get through that? However, as not to compare myself to anyone else, some of the stories that I have been privy to as a spiritual life coach would make you lay in the ground and just weep. Things that people have endured when they were children, it would absolutely make you weep. Some of the experiences that I have not only just heard, but that I see on a daily basis. You know, I have the privilege of seeing children and interacting with their caregivers, and it breaks my heart sometimes. Some of the things that I see and that I'm witness to. If you are brave enough, courageous enough to tear your childhood apart and look within it and examine it and question it and do this reparenting work, because it's one thing to say, well, I'm going to give myself all of the things that I didn't get when I was a child, and that may support you in ways that you didn't even know. I am still at this large age experiencing times when I'm like, you know, you can give yourself permission to do this thing. I had that experience yesterday. So as I said earlier, I went to some celebrations of life, and you know, one of the rituals after a celebration of life is, you know, there's a communal gathering. We call it the repast. Now, I have seen people say repast with a T, repass with two S's. I have always said repass. Somebody tell me if you have a different label for the gathering that happens after a memorial service. It's something we do. It's not done in all cultures, but it's something that is very, very common. For, you know, we've just gone through this emotional experience together. And it's a way in which we can try to repair one another. Let's eat, because who doesn't like to eat? Let's gather, let's laugh, let's balance this day by mourning and grieving, and also actually celebrating and supporting one another and talking to one another about, well, what's good going on in your life. You know, that is the function of the repast. It is to support the family. It's supposed to be to support the family. The family who is experiencing the loss should not be the ones cooking and cleaning and serving. Sometimes that happens because those are the people who feel like I got to do something or I'm going to lose my mind. But it is a way in which the community comes together and say, we are here to support you, not just in your mourning, but in the day-to-day things you got to do. Okay. So we're at this gathering, and I have my purse, and I don't see anywhere to put my purse down, because the days, ladies, of us putting our purse in the chair next to us, therefore somebody else doesn't have a seat, we got to be more generous than that. But I'm also a Black lady. And Black ladies don't put their purses on the ground. We just don't. But sometimes Black ladies got big old purses, and I didn't have my largest purse, but it was pretty large. So I'm like, okay, the chair was not a chair where I could hang my purse from. And so as I'm looking around, I had this download and it said, Yolanda, you don't have to do what's always been done just because it's been done over and over. It's okay. And even me saying this feels like a betrayal. It is okay to put your purse down on the carpet so you can eat. I couldn't do it, y'all. I just couldn't do it. So here I am balancing my purse on my feet, balancing my purse between my 2 feet so that it would not touch the ground. Because as a Black woman, I have heard from the time that I was young that don't put your purse on the ground because then you won't have any money. And beside the fact that it's just, not the floors are typically not clean. That's just not a place you want to put your personal belongings. But I couldn't do it. And so I'm uncomfortable because I have to put my feet and my legs in a particular way so that the purse doesn't touch the ground. But it was that thought of you have adopted a ritual that does not really make sense, but yet and still you still engage in it. See, you and I have never met in person, but you know that rule. It was a large purse, so if I put it in my lap, I wasn't going to be able to eat my food. I couldn't put it behind the chair because the chair had like a hole. Like, trust me, I was thinking, well, I could put it on the table, but then it was taking up table space. So I put it, I put it between my feet. I had my feet like this, and the purse. I put my feet to the side, and I put my purse there. That wasn't the cleanest option, but it was not going to go on the floor. It just wasn't going to go on the floor. So, as we are doing reparenting work, you have to also ask yourself, why am I doing this? What purpose does it serve? And does it align with the me that I desire to be? And it is going to be hard to pull some of those things out of your daily repertoire because it's ingrained in your brain. It's ingrained in our DNA. There are just things that have always been done that are traditional, and we don't know why we do them. Sometimes those things will harm you mentally and emotionally, and we will still do it. There are people who are getting ready to go to their families' homes to sit down and eat with people who have disrespected you, dismissed you, and done so many things in your life that have caused you harm. And you still think, well, I'm bringing the macaroni and cheese, so I have to go. I have to go. And some of us are not at that place in our life where we are willing to say, I'm not going to sit and eat with people who don't love me in the way that I deserve to be loved. I'm just not going to do it. Or I am not going to sit down at a dining room table and break bread with a family member that traumatized me. I don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. And as clear as I'm saying that, I know that in someone's spirit, it is that voice saying, but what are they going to think about me? So I will go back to my original thought that your soul work is how do you feel about yourself within the true context of your experiences that may include people that have hurt you? Are you willing to be courageous enough to say, you don't get to be dismissive of my experience? And if you are unwilling to take accountability for your actions or the actions of other people, because some of us feel like we've had to take sides in our family. Grandmom has that son, has that daughter that could do no wrong in her eyes. That's her baby. And even though that baby done terrorized everybody in the family, that's her baby. And she gonna keep on praying that something shifts in that baby's life, even though that baby is 45 years old and should be held accountable for their actions. That's her baby. And she gonna make sure her baby is treated just like everybody else, even though the entire family is like, is so and so gonna be there? Because if so and so is gonna be there, I'm not coming. Like this person has wreaked havoc in the family. It's like when I watch that show Intervention, where people are active in addiction and their families are telling the story. You can see the exhaustion, the physical exhaustion, and the emotional exhaustion that the family members have surrounding this issue, which is infecting everyone. And then sometimes there's that one person who's like, oh, they gonna get it together, they're gonna be all right. And everybody's like, so my feelings don't get to be validated. My desires, my happiness doesn't get to be validated. It's I don't care if it's intervention, I don't care if it's hoarders. There's always that one child who's like, we're gonna go in here and clean this house up and throw everything away. And then there's the sibling like, you can't do that because mama loves her stuff. And it's like these conflicts that happen in families where again, it's the secrets. It's the we got to act like everything is okay when we know everything is not okay. And so, if you are on this reparenting journey, you're going to have to, number one, ask yourself, did the divine, am I willing to say that the divine intelligence made a mistake in placing me in the hands of these people? You're going to have to ask yourself, am I willing to say absolutely N to the O for my peace of mind and that I'm worthy of my feelings being validated? You're going to have to ask yourself, is this tradition or this ritual that we are engaged in, is it healthy for me? And does it align with the me that I desire to be? So, because if you're going to reparent yourself, are you going to reparent yourself back into the same developmental trauma? Are you going to do the same thing that was done to you? No. One of the prime reasons for reparenting is that you have acknowledged and identified that something could have been done differently because it's impacting me today and I desire to be different. I desire a different way of being. You know, I took a stance, and it might seem minor, but I took a stance when I moved into this home that I wasn't going to, with the exception of my altar, that I wasn't going to create a number of shrines in my home because that is, and it could be a judgment, what I believe my mother did. She had two china cabinets. She bought this humongous wall unit and then proceeded to put things in there that nobody could touch. It was almost as if, let me put the things on display that y'all are not worthy enough to touch. The crystal glasses, the china plates, the crystal. She loved Mikasa, whatever. Um, the Mikasa and I can't think of the other one. Crystal maker um, ornaments that never got on the tree. They're still in the box and will go in the china cabinet. It was like she needed a shrine of things that no, I don't know about y'all, but I grew up in a house where you don't touch those things. There was a time we weren't allowed to go in the living room, like all of those things. And I know that some of that was connected to these are things that we did not have when I was growing up. These are luxuries that were not afforded her family when she was growing up. So the fact that she could collect them and put them on display meant a lot to her. I understand that. But I made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to do that, that I'm going to use my stuff. I'm going to use her stuff. So I'm going to use her glasses, even the glasses that she never ever used. I use them to put flowers in. I use them for things that she probably would be mortified that I'm using them for, but I'm using them. because I'm sending a message to my inner child that says, you are worthy of luxury. You are worthy of using luxurious things. Like I love to, allow other people to feel like you are worthy of a champagne glass when you just want some water. You know what I mean? You are worthy of beautiful things and you can use them. When my mother passed away, we were finding stuff with tags on it that had never been used. And I'm like, this woman in some regards, behaved as if she had nothing. And she had a wealth of stuff. And so ask yourself, are there particular things that I'm doing that I have adopted from the people who raised me that are a clear indication that I can do something different? I had a chuckle the other day when I thought about the fact that my grandmother, and probably every woman in my lineage, washed other people's clothes. My mother washed other people's homes and clothes. And now I don't wash none of my clothes. I have somebody else do that for me. I was like, I feel like I have broken a generational curse. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing your own laundry, but to me, it was almost like a triumph of where we've come in my lineage that I do not do. Because isn't that one of the things that we want, that each generation feels as if they are free to do particular things that the previous generation did not feel like they were free to do? And so as I'm reparenting myself, I'm looking at some of those things as like, I can be non-traditional and still have structure in my life. Because that's what was told to me. You do these things because you need a foundation, you need structure. I can do non traditional things and still have structure in my life. And every time I do something that doesn't align with what my parents wanted me to do, it doesn't feel like rebellion. It feels like freedom. It feels like freedom because perhaps they never had that opportunity to think so freely because they felt like they needed to live within the confines of particular things. Now, there are some traditional things that I hold as sacred that I'm grateful that my mother and my father, my grandmother taught me. There are absolutely some particular things that are so sacred that I would not change anything about them. And so you listen, the china cabinets. Right. You are your good company. Right now, I have one of my mother's crystal water goblets in my office. That's where I drink my water out of. Because I want those babies in that center to see Miss Yolanda with her fancy glass. We don't just drink out of plastic. We are deserving of good and nice and wonderful things. And so when I dress up and I'm over the top, it's because I want them to have the experience of dressing for how you feel instead of dressing for what's acceptable to other people. You want to wear a ball gown to the grocery store, you go right ahead. If that's what makes you feel good, then so be it. So be it. And so I hope that some of you are able to make that choice. I understand that it's not always a possibility for some of us. I completely understand that. But I will say again and again and again, your soul work is not about how other people feel about you. It's how do you feel about yourself? Is it possible as you are maturing emotionally and mentally that you can look at the people who raised you with a sense of neutrality that says, you know what? I don't need to continuously tell a story of things I didn't get. I don't need to continuously tell a story about how somebody did me wrong. I can understand it. I can remember it and also say, I don't want that energy to hold me back or limit me in any way. And that's what I realized that I was doing in both of those cases. When I was making sure that no one in my story in my past was a villain, I wasn't affording myself the opportunity to heal. I wasn't affording myself the opportunity to see what accountability looks like. to see what authenticity looks like. I wasn't giving myself the opportunity to do that because the story I was telling was everybody was good. Nobody did anything wrong. They were just, it just happens. I'm not the only one that happened to, so it's common. Making excuses for people did not afford me the opportunity to heal particular traumas in my life. And then I went to the other extreme where everybody was the villain, and that limited my life too, because now I won't let anybody love me. Now I won't form deep and meaningful relationships with people because I don't trust anyone. So getting to a place where I'm not casting anyone as the villain, but I'm also not letting them off the hook, but I'm also not making them the hero, but I'm also not making them accountable for my healing. Like really getting to the place too, the only thing that I control at this moment is how I hold that energy in my consciousness. The only thing that I can control in this moment is whether or not I let my past determine my future. Like we talked about last week with the law of cause and effect. And if you have either watched, if you are part of the evolved community, our reflection on Wednesday night, we took a deeper dive. Marissa, you had great questions and great insight. We took a deeper dive where we're like, this is about my healing. I love my mom, I love my daddy. I'm not here to do their healing. I'm not here to rewrite the story so that they come out crystal clean. I can't do that work for them. They may be doing that work on the other side by supporting me in ways that they didn't when they were living. That's how I can hold that energy. It's like, that stuff that y'all dropped the ball on when you were parenting me and your parenting style. And we'll talk about parenting style in a minute. Now I have to do this for myself. Mama, daddy, now I got to do this work for myself. And if you want to help me at all, you on the other side, let's do the work that didn't get done when you were here. Support me in that way. I honor you. But if I'm going to ask you for anything, it's the support I need now as I'm learning to make myself whole. Make myself whole. So, in that way, I can honor them, but also hold them accountable. I can also hold them accountable. I can say, you know what, daddy, all that violence that I witnessed at an early age came back in my life tenfold. And I'm upset about it. I wish you hadn't have done that. I wish that you were able to process your emotions in a different way. I wish that you didn't have to hurt and harm yourself and others through alcohol and violence and cigarettes and whatever else you may have indulged in that I don't even know about. I wish that hadn't been the case, but that's truly what happened. And I love you still because thank God I have been able to heal some of that damage. There is damage that remains that I'm still working through. But this is what I also know. My daddy was a fighter. And I got some of that fighting spirit. Now, sometimes the people he was fighting, he shouldn't have been fighting, but my daddy taught me how to fight, not just physically, but mentally. One of the things that my father always impressed and my mother always impressed upon us was to read everything. And if my father was watching anything, it was one of three things. It was C-SPAN because the man loved politics. It was sports, ESPN because the man loved sports. Or it was black movies because the man was a cinephile, loved black cinema. Probably didn't have the opportunity when he was younger to engage in it, but as he got older, loved it and would often go to the movies by himself. And it was something that I discovered later on in my life. I was like, I didn't know what that man was doing. That man was going to the movies by himself, which probably was healing something for him. So I now can see him fully I can see him fully, that he was a complex human being, as we all are. We are complex beings. And so I don't have to hold the energy of he was a horrible father. I can say that in many ways he was a horrible father, but in many ways he was a great teacher. And he taught me how to be independent. And if he didn't do what he did, I wouldn't be who I am. Even though I have to heal from some of the trauma that he inflicted upon his family, I love him still. It has taken a long time for me to get to that point. I know at the point in time when his life was ending, there was this immediate panic in my body because I felt like we have not resolved anything and you are about to leave this earth and I'm still angry at you. And there are words that you have yet to say to me, and there are words that I have yet to say to you. And here you are about to leave this earthly body, and we don't have the time. But we got the time now. He is a command audience. You got to listen to everything I say. From the beyond. He cannot run, he cannot hide. He's got to listen to every single thing that I say about my relationship with him and how it has impacted my relationship with other men. One of the downloads that I received this morning in terms of preparing for today was because of my relationship with my father and the things that, not all, but some of the things that occurred when I was growing up, and the anger that I held in my body that is reflected in this diary from when I was younger. When I talked earlier about the anger and the venom that is in this little Hello Kitty diary has multiple hit lists in here. My father is often at the top of that hit list. There was a time when I prayed that my father would pass away. I prayed to God, please remove him from our life. Let him go somewhere. Let him pass away, because there were moments when it was so violent in my house. I was like, he got to go because this is not going to end. I was no longer praying for those moments where things were good. You know, when you live in a volatile household and you have moments when it's blissful and everything is good, and then you have moments when it's horrific, you pray for the blissful moments. I was no longer even praying for the blissful moments. It was, he got to go, and I don't care how you do it, God, just get him out of here. I want him out. As a young person processing what was going on, that's the level of intensity that it had. I get it. As an adult, I'm like, baby girl, I know it was intense for you then, but I'm here to tell you that it's not always like that. That's not the definition of love. That's not the definition of family. And you get to recreate those experiences for yourself now. You get to define for yourself what love looks like and how it enters your life. You get to define what family looks like and how it enters your life. And so that is the pleasure of reparenting, one of the pleasures of reparenting for me, that I get to create from this point forward a different story that will mean that you have to redefine things. And I hope you see this similar theme of redefining that consistently comes up as a tool from a spiritual life coach. You have to redefine, and that might mean pulling apart what you believe to be the definition of something. So when people say things like love hurts, not over here, it don't. It is not hurtful or harmful. Love is disappointing, not over here, it's not, because that's not how I define love. Doesn't mean that all things are good. I was just having a conversation with my daughter. She was talking about her relationship, and I said to her, I know this feels important to you now, but does it rise to the level of importance where you are willing to throw this relationship and all of the goodness away? Because if you are, I'm going to support you. But is this just a moment where it feels intense for you and you're ready to, make it a big thing? Or is it really a big thing? And she was able to say, you know what? I have daddy issues. And so I'm triggered when particular things happen. I said, you are well on your way to healing because you have acknowledged that this issue right now isn't a real big thing, but it feels like one. Until it stops feeling like one, it's going to be one for me. And that's what I said earlier. When you are going through the experiences of your life, you may need to ask yourself, is this true or is it what I need? It's what she needed in the moment. She needed to be mad so that she could get to a point where hopefully she creates a healthy boundary for her and her partner. So the anger, justified. The behavior, maybe not the most mature, but in that moment, it's what she felt she needed to be safe because she acknowledged, I am triggered. And so I may not be responding in the best way that I know, but this is what I know right now. And I'm hopeful that I have created a safe space with my partner to where we can have a discussion about this. Yesterday, with my beloved, we were writing notes to each other. And I said to him, I want to fight you. Like I'm always telling him I want to fight him. And he's like, I thought you said we weren't going to be fighting. And I said, one of the reasons I like fighting with you because I love the way we make up. And he was like, well, let's just get to the making up part. I was like, all right, we could do that. And so a lot of the times in my relationships now, when it feels like what it used to feel like when I was this little girl, I notice when I'm about to go back to this type of behavior and when I'm not. And it doesn't look exactly the same. Like I'm not writing hit lists. I'm not putting my beloved at the top of a hit list. But there are times when I feel like this is similar to what I experienced with my father. So my reaction is going to be, I'm done. I'm ready to fly. I'm ready to flee. I'm ready to go somewhere where it feels safe. I'm grateful that through emotional maturity, I can say, in spiritual maturity, I can say, hold up, we're not running anywhere. We are experiencing something that feels familiar that we are still healing, but let's put it into context. Is it true or is it just what you need in this moment? And so most of the time, it's my anger is justified in what I need in this moment. Sometimes it is absolutely true, and it's a boundary that I have established, and I feel like it has been breached. And I'm going to stand my ground. I'm going to speak my piece, and I'm going to stay true to what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking and the boundary that I have set. We have to get to a point in our reparenting journey where we understand the difference between this is what I need right now to get through, and no, I am clear that this is a healthy boundary that I've set for myself that someone else is crossing. Hey, my love, how are you? I hope all is well down there on the island. So, one of the things that I'm going to invite every single one of us to think about, I don't even want to say do, because again, it takes a particular level of mental and emotional maturity to get to this level. But asking yourself, can I hold compassion for myself and others? I'm not talking about acting like it didn't happen. I'm not talking about holding and keeping secrets. I am talking about compassion that may need redefining depending upon what your definition of compassion is. My definition of compassion does not mean we have to be friends, does not even mean I have to like you. My definition of compassion doesn't mean that I got to invite you over to my house or even speak to you again. My definition of compassion is that the energy that I'm willing to hold about you does not impact my ability to love myself or other people. So that means a level of acceptance that what happened happened, that you participated, that I didn't like it, that it has harmed me, that I now have to do that work to heal it. But I'm compassionate enough to not impact how I feel about myself and how I begin to feel about other people. And it keeps me from harming you. It keeps me from throwing mud in your direction. It keeps me from damaging relationships that you might have with other people. I was listening to an episode of The People's Court. I wasn't watching it, I literally was listening to it. There were three siblings. One of the siblings had purchased a mattress for their mother, and it was her belief that when she went back over there was a new mattress on the bed, and she believes that her other two siblings stole the mattress and put another mattress on the bed. And so she going all the way to the People's Court, y'all, with this nonsense over a mattress. And the judge knew it was nonsense because she kept saying, this is not about a mattress. What is going on here? If the real concern is your mother and caring for her as you are, why are y'all arguing over a mattress? And so the other two siblings were like, yeah, we had to throw the mattress out because it got infected with bed bugs. So we not only threw it out, we replaced it. It was the other sibling. No, they stole the mattress, even though she agreed that, well, yeah, there were bed bugs, but there wasn't bed bugs in both of the they stole the mattress. She just was hell bent on them being the villains, and she was the victim. And one of the siblings said, this has been our whole life. Our whole life has been about her saying that we have done something to her. We have wronged her in some way. And so they were countersuing for defamation because not only did she believe it, she was telling everybody on Facebook, how things go. And it was interesting to me that that the one sibling was clearly not at a place where she could hold compassion for anyone, not even herself. Because what do you have to say about you if you believe yourself to be a constant victim? What are you saying about yourself if you see yourself in the way that everybody hurts me, harms me, I'm the victim? You're saying something about yourself when you do that. You are saying that you don't have any boundaries. You can't speak up for yourself. You can't, you really have to dissect it when you're telling the story. If your story is constantly, everybody's picking on me, everybody is mean to me, everybody hates me, I'm the black sheep of the. Start to think about what you're saying about yourself, what you believe about yourself, so that would be true. Okay. But what was interesting to me is one of the siblings said, I love my sister. I don't know why she thinks we hate her. We don't hate her. We love her. We understand that she may see things differently and that she may have needs that we have not met. They were really, one of the siblings was like, I have no reason to harm my sister. I love my sister. I don't like her all of the time, but I love my sister. And to me, that was someone who is willing to still have compassion for someone who has vilified them, harmed them, and thinks of them in such a low way. Now, I don't know it to be true that they don't do something to this other sister. What I'm saying is holding compassion for yourself and holding compassion for other people doesn't mean that you disregard the offense. It doesn't mean that you wash away all of their sins. As a matter of fact, if I'm holding compassion for you, I'm also holding you accountable because I love you enough, or I love the idea of you enough, because I may not love everybody that I have compassion for, but I love the idea of the same thing being afforded to me if I need it. If I am ever the creator of harm for someone else, I pray that there is grace for my behavior and a level of forgiveness. I pray for that. How can I want it for myself if I can't want that for other people? Even people that I just, every time I see them, my skin crawls. Literally, skin crawling because of who they are and their behavior. I still have to get to a level of mental and emotional maturity where I say, I have to hold compassion for them in my consciousness. Doesn't mean that I even have to speak to that person, but for my well being, I am holding a level of compassion that whatever it is that they're dealing with, it might be a mental illness, it might be emotional scarring, it might just be that they're an evil person. I pray that they get whatever they need so that they don't have to have this kind of life experience. Because what I understand and know that people who seem to have a negative nature or an evil spirit, that is not a happy life, no matter how it looks on the outside. Internally, I know there's some conflict. Unless, of course, you have a significant personality disorder where you don't even make the connections, because that could be the truth too. There are, again, I'm watching these documentaries on, cults, and very often the person at the top of the cult lacks the ability for empathy and compassion for others, and so they have a severe personality defect. However, they can appear to have compassion, which is how they draw people in. Oh, they're so loving. They're so loving, but you do some dissection and you see they're not loving at all. Because anyone that would tell you to abandon your family, anyone that would tell you to give me all your money, anybody that would tell you that I'm the only one that's going to give you your healing doesn't care anything about you. I don't care who they are. I don't care what institution it is. Anyone who would prey upon people who are at their lowest mentally and emotionally has a severe personality disorder that, again, I can hold compassion for you because you're dealing with something that sometimes even the greatest of clinicians cannot undo. But that doesn't mean that I have to be your friend or that I'm not going to tell my truth. Because I think that also happens when we are reparenting. People feel like, well, I'm not going to be able to tell my truth because it's going to hurt and harm a bunch of people. Tell your truth. There is a way for you to tell your truth. I'm very, I don't know if I'm very open about it before I say it, but I can be very open about the violence that has occurred in my life. I can tell you that it has happened in a relationship with my father. It has happened in romantic relationships that I've had. I'm going to tell the truth because the truth is, it always holds. That doesn't mean that I have to consistently go around and throw mud and even name names and say, this person did this to me and he's a horrible person and stay away from him. That's not my agenda. There are individuals that I'm still in communication with that have harmed me greatly. If somebody asks me, well, what type of person are they? Am I going to go into my long history with them? I could be honest and say we don't have the same experience that we once had, and I am not as close with them as I used to be based upon things that happened between us. You may not need to know all the dirty details unless I think that you are in harm's way. There is a way to tell your story without feeling as though you are throwing mud or hurting or harming anyone else. As they say, we all make choices in our life and we have to live with the consequences of those choices. So, if part of my journey means that I tell my story and you are a part of it, and your part in that story doesn't look so nice and glowing, That may be the consequence of the choice that was made at that point in time. Same thing for me. Somebody could be telling a story right now where I am absolutely horrific. That may be based upon the choices that I made and the consequences that I am now facing. Mama Ia, always says one of the reasons she wrote her books from the perspective of things that happened in her life is that if you tell your story, then people can't use it against you, which is one of the tactics of a cult, gathering information about people's lives and their past or their present, and then saying, I'm going to make this public if you don't do what I say do. The threat of that, you know, imagine it. Imagine you're a young person and you're living under the threat of, I'm going to tell your mama what you did at this party with this person if you don't do what I tell you to do. And for many people, that is a real experience and reason why secrets are kept and lies are told, because they're living with the threat of what if somebody finds out about what I did? But again, your soul work is more about how you feel about yourself within the true context of your experiences with other people that included other people. How you feel about you has to be your priority. There was a comment that Marissa made earlier, and also the invitation for those of us. Marissa is saying that she's going to have to reparent from birth. And I've said that, last year when we did the inner child healing series, we started at conception. And so for many of us, this reconciliation of your life may mean that you go back to a time before you even existed. And it's not about you recreating history or taking sides. I want to know what created me. I want to know about the energy that that I developed in. What was your mama going through when she was carrying you? That energy got transferred. And that might be valuable information for you. And it may mean that you ask the question. Doesn't mean that you're going to get the answer. Doesn't mean that you're going to get the truth. But you might be courageous enough if you have the opportunity to say, let me call mama up and see if I can get her to talk about what was going on between her and my dad when I was forming, when I was, coming into existence. How did I come into existence? What was my birth like? Was it birth by C-section? Was it emergency birth in a taxi? Was it, a water birth? Was it a beautiful, blessed day? Or was it traumatic things happening all around your family at that time? What were you born into? It's good information. And for those of us who are becoming our parents, because you're going to give yourself what your mama gives and more, hopefully. You're going to nurture in the energy of a mother, the energy of a father. You're going to nurture, you're going to care, you're going to provide discipline and guidelines. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about creating commandments for ourselves. I have those two commandments that I have are supporting me greatly. Because just when I'm about to do some stuff, I'm like, you said you're here to create peace and that you are not here to create distractions. So cut it out. That's a form of reparenting. When we look at who we desire to become and say, these values are important to me, there is a sheet that I'm going to put in the Evolve community that has a list of different values. Maybe you want to adopt one of those values. Maybe something is speaking to your spirit where you're like, that's the energy and the characteristics of that I want to embody now. And I don't think I've ever seen it. For those of you, maybe you grew up in a household where no one worked. And so you don't believe yourself to be a hard worker and you don't know what it takes to be a hard worker and you want to embody those principles and that work ethic. You might have to look to other places to get that as you reparent yourself. Or maybe you grew up in a household where everybody was working all the time. You don't know how to relax. Even when it's vacation, you still working. Like the only reason you take vacation is so you don't lose it at the end of the year, but you never really take a vacation. You're still working. I know people like that. I have worked with people like that. The schedule says they're off. Why are you in here on your off day? Oh, well, there's just some things that I needed to finish. So you're going to come to work when you're not even supposed to be here? You kidding me? But that might be the energy that you grew up in. Everybody was working and hard work, hard work, hard work was overemphasized in your life. So you don't know how to relax. You don't know how to rest. You don't know how to just chill. I love I love that I introduced and hold sacred napping to my children because I grew up in a household where you were not allowed to take no naps. They thought something was wrong with you if you were laying down. Imagine not even having autonomy over your body to rest your body when it needs it. Now we are a napping family. Give us a blanket, we're out. Sometimes we don't even need the blanket. We're going to sleep. We're going to fuss if we have to get up. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that my children, my daughters, don't overwork themselves. That's another thing that I believe that I healed from my generation. I know my grandmother was a hard worker. I know my mother was a hard worker. It damn near killed her. It probably was one of the reasons why she had an early transition because all of those years of working 2, 3 jobs and to not have any time for yourself once you retire, it's madness. Will not be my lot in life, as they say. And so rewatch this video. I didn't write anything down to put into the comments, but rewatch if you need to write some tenets down in terms of reparenting, dissecting, extracting information and recognizing and discerning when it may not align with your beliefs. Recognize that there are predators in the midst and that you are your own guide, you are your own guru. Take everything, process it, and decide, does this align with the truth that I have created for me and the me that I need to be? Understand what your parenting style is as you reparent yourself and how it might be different from your parents. I grew up in an era where spanking your children was a way to develop conformity. You're not doing what I want you to do, and I'm going to beat you. I'm going to spank you until you start doing what I want you to do. That's not how I'm going to reparent myself. And I recognize when I was doing that. If I made a mistake or if I did something I wasn't supposed to do, punish, 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 instead of discipline, which looks like, what if we learned here, Yolanda? You are not going to be closer to the things that you desire if you keep behaving this way. And remember what you are saying about yourself. If you think the only way that you can learn how to do something is through violence and hardship and suffering, remember what you say about yourself matters when you are healing. Because are you healing a wound or are you reopening it? Are you contributing to that wound never getting healed because you're doing the exact same things that were done to you? Make sure that you can find a way to hold compassion for yourself. But if you're not there yet, then acknowledge it by asking, is this true? Or is this what I need right now? Do I need to be angry? Do I need to see them as the villain? Do I need to be maybe temporarily holding a victimization mindset. Maybe I do, so that I can see some things, so that I can see and hear what I sound like. Recognize when you are not holding people accountable, including yourself. And that might look like nobody's a villain or everybody's a villain. I'm a victim or I'm a willing participant. I let these things happen to me. Pay attention to when you're operating in extremes. And maybe next week we'll talk about the law of polarity, which again is something that we are all operating under. And so when we make choices, it can come with a consequence. When you are operating at extremes, you're going to see some extreme things. You're going to see some extreme things. Oh, man, you couldn't formulate a question in your mouth. You better not say why. You better not say what. I remember getting in trouble if I ever responded with what. If my mom or my dad asked me to do something and I said, "What, child, please." That's like a cuss word in our house. You better not say what or why. Whew, you just couldn't. You just could not question. When now in the child care center, I love it when kids ask me questions because to me that's an indication that their brain is working. That means their brain is processing information. If a child is asking you questions, there is a reason, no matter how nauseating it can be, because they got a million questions. But the reason they're asking questions is because their mind is working. For those of us who know what it feels like to have a high level sense of discernment, that third eye discernment, it comes from questioning everything. How are children who are going to grow into adolescents, who are going to grow into adults, supposed to develop that skill if we don't allow them to ask questions? Do you know how frustrating that is? Where you have questions in your mind and no one will answer them or even allow you to process your thoughts. You got to have the patience of Job to deal with little people who are processing their emotions and their thoughts, but you better not stunt it because now you have become the very thing that you are now healing from. I can't stand it. It just grates my nerves when we disrupt children processing information. There are times when it has to happen because of safety and for other reasons. But I love it when you can literally see their eyes like, that doesn't make sense. Tell me, what? Well, why do I have to do that? Well, how come? Well, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so we're over time as we typically over. Oh no, we're not because I started late. So let's meditate. Let's meditate. And the download that I received for meditation was perfectly imperfect. Oh, yes. Oh, do you know how many times that I heard that phrase so often that I actually believed that it was a scripture? My parents said this so often: children should be seen and not heard. Oh my goodness. I literally was like, well, that got to be in the Bible because I keep hearing it like it's the gospel. Children need to be heard or they grow up to be adults who have to figure out, is anybody seeing me? Is anybody hearing me? Am I even hearing myself? Yes. We have to let children be inquisitive. That's how they learn so that they are not on the internet on a Sunday yelling at people like I am, because I grew up in an environment that, as my brain was developing, the disruption of processing information was also happening. I'm thinking of stuff, and somebody's telling me, you don't think that, don't ask any questions, just do what I say do. And my brain is like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to think for myself. And if I'm not supposed to think for myself, then I have to listen to whatever anyone is telling me, which leads to me Going into relationships where I didn't always think for myself because I never developed that skill. It all is correlating, people. So let the children think, let the children process, let the children come and ask you a million and one questions until they get it, until they're like, oh, so that they can see the value in questions. Oh. And so the perfectly imperfect, I believe, is because with everything that I experienced yesterday, people reflecting on the lives of people who are no longer here, um, spending a long time in the car with my beloved, I realize, I acknowledge, and I identify that I'm so imperfect, that we are all imperfect, but we are perfect in those imperfections. And as if we are going to do the courageous task of reparenting ourselves, we also have to say or acknowledge that our caregivers were imperfect people who produced imperfect people, but who are all deserving of grace, of mercy, of understanding. I believe that everyone is deserving of understanding. We may not all be deserving of reconnection, communication, and sometimes even forgiveness. But I do believe we are all deserving of understanding. Redefine what understanding means for you if you think that that means that you have to compromise who you are in any shape or form. I would never tell anyone, well, just give them grace, even though it hurts you to do it. Never. Because the minute you start to do that, the minute you start to compromise the integrity of the love that you have for yourself, other people will think it's okay for them to do the same. I'm going to say it again. The minute, the second you engage in behavior that is a betrayal of the love that you have for yourself, the love, the respect, and the honor that you carry for yourself, the second you do it to yourself, it opens a door for other people to do the same. And I can't tell you what is more harmful. I can say it's my experience that when I betray myself, it is significantly more painful than when other people do it. When I've acknowledged that I betrayed myself and what I believe to be true, it devastates me. I'm able to recover from it, but it sometimes takes a while. Other people doing stuff, I can always, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, I'm like, I'm not going to let you see how that hurt me or harmed me. That might be the Aries in me. I don't know. But when I do it to myself, I'm devastated. And so let us, as we are committing ourselves to reparenting ourselves, let's also take an oath that we're going to do our best not to betray ourselves and the beings that we are becoming. And one of the ways to do that is to acknowledge that we're perfectly imperfect. None of this is easy, and none of this is permanent. This is all temporary, which yesterday could not have hit in any other way. It's like, and which is why I was telling my daughter, this is temporary. And we don't know how much time that we have with one another. So are we going to be holding each other to these incredible standards, these standards of perfection that mean nothing sometimes? But we are so hell bent on punishing even the slightest of grievances or slightest of misguided human attempts, all because there's a wound that we haven't healed yet. I said to my beloved, this week I got flowers because we had a we had a challenging conversation one morning, and it happened to come at a time where I was just about to pick up the phone and share some good information. And before I could do that, he called and he was telling me that he was upset about something, and I instantly went into defense mode. And so it could have went all the way left, as we like to say. And I have to acknowledge that when I'm triggered or when I feel that I have to defend myself, it's because I'm holding a standard that might be impossible to hold. And we had a lovely conversation about how unfair it can be to hold people to standards that they don't even know are present, but we're expecting them. And so, wherever you are, let's take some deep breaths. And just for a moment, if you're able to pour out everything that happened prior to this moment, pour out all of the things that might be happening. I know we are rushing into different experiences or transitioning into different experiences. If you would hold in your consciousness that I am okay with being imperfect, that I let myself off the hook for all of the impossible standards that I have created in my mind that might have a root into some unhealed places in my past. Things that I'm saying about myself, things that I may be saying about others, could be limiting the way that I see myself. That I'm allowed to make mistakes. I am allowed to create thoughts and feelings and then go back and redirect that energy in another way. I'm okay with being wrong. And I'm okay with learning things about myself and about others where I can see them in the highest form possible, because I know that's how the divine intelligence sees me. There's no way I would be given all of these great visions and goals and things that I want to do with my life if the divine intelligence didn't think it was possible for me to be the exact being to create them, even in the midst of my imperfections. In the midst of my imperfections, I am still seen as worthy, as holy, as sacred. I am still seen as an intelligent being who may, at times, engage in imperfect behavior, imperfect attitudes, and even some negative principles that I might be holding in my consciousness. I recognize that's who I am at times. And the more that I acknowledge these imperfections, the more that I can say, hey, if there is a space, if there is a portal, if there is a channel of healing through these imperfections, then let me acknowledge them. Let me say when I'm wrong so that I can grow from it. Let me acknowledge when I may have dropped the ball on something so that I can grow. Let me see all of the ways in which I am prepared for growth that I have been ignoring because I'm afraid to call myself imperfect. Perfection does not allow for things to change or transform. Because if we hold it to be perfect, if it is 100% precisely the way that it is supposed to be, then where is the growth? Where is the opportunity to do something different? Where is the opportunity to unlearn a tradition, a ritual, that really is limiting the way that we see ourselves or the way we move in the world? Where is the room in perfection? I'm doing something, I don't even know the root cause of it, but it's what has been expected of me always. Where's the room of growth in that mindset? I'm doing what is expected instead of what I am learning to do. Where is the growth? In me seeing myself as anything but perfectly imperfect. How do I transform? How do I stay accountable? How do I live with integrity if I think I'm 100% perfect all of the time? Or I'm holding myself to that standard that might not even be mine. It might be someone else's. How do I get messy and make mistakes and see where I made the mistake and learn? Oh, I did ABC 1 2 3, and maybe I should have been doing ABW 2 3 7. Who knows? How am I going to know that if I'm not willing to see and be telling and tell myself the truth? And also say that I'm a responsible enough being that I can handle the uncovering of truth, that I no longer have to create a fictional story to support myself mentally or emotionally. I may need to do that temporarily. I may need to say that that man was a bad man. I may need to say that that woman was a bad woman. I may need to say that those children were jerks. I may need to say that that workplace was toxic. I might need to say that those people were horrible to me. I might need to say that, and there probably is truth in those statements. But I also want to get to a place where I see myself differently in those experiences so that I never have to revisit them in other relationships, in other interactions. Because we know that a lesson that has not been learned is surely going to repeat itself in a different form. So let me get about the business of telling the truth the first time, the second time, the third time. We have innumerable chances. However, we are smarter than that because the divine intelligence also lives within us. If we allow ourselves to see it that way, then maybe we won't have to keep recreating the same experience over and over and over again. When we start to use our spiritual minds, our spiritual hearts, perhaps we'll see what we desire to see that is necessary for our journey and for our healing. That's my prayer for each and every single one of us, that we get to a place that the parenting style that we use is peaceful, is freeing, that doesn't create additional limits for us that may have been created. And even when our caregivers have had the best of intentions, and as a parent, I absolutely acknowledge that even when I had the best of intentions, I probably created severe limitations for my children in the way that they saw themselves, in the way that they enter into relationships, in the way that they exit relationships, in their desire to make it all good for everyone else while they may be hurting. I acknowledge that I played a part in their development of self, the development of their self value, that I impacted that greatly based upon my own choices and my behavior and what they saw from me. And so, my prayer for all of us is, as we do the work of reparenting, we recognize that our parenting style is a loving one, is a freeing one, is a peaceful one, that we release ourselves from thinking everything has to be perfect in order for it to be acceptable by other people. And I'm going to end with your soul work is how you feel about yourself. And how do you hold yourself in high regard within the true context of experiences that you've had? I hope that the rest of this week for you is one where you recognize where your imperfections are opportunities for love, for healing, for learning, for growth, and not a measure of who you are as a being. Because we love to stack up all of our imperfections. I don't do this right. I don't do that right. I can't do this right. I just, I saw someone, and even I have said this at times. I don't ever want to be in another, I'm just going to be by myself. There is so much heaviness on that. I'm just going to be by myself. I don't want to be with nobody else because I can't trust anyone. That is it literally sounds like a call for healing when we say you are occupying space on a spinning rock with billions of other people, and you think that the best course of action for you is to separate yourself from the herd. There's a lot to impact um, when we think that way, that the only way that we can heal is by ourselves to ourselves. Um, I can't remember where we started the discussion, but I remember seeing a young man say, yeah, I need self love, but I also need community love. And so this is not a pitch, it just happened to be a segue into the evolved community, which is still building and growing. Because as a severely independent person, I absolutely at one point in time believed I'm going to do all this work by myself. Even when I was in my spiritual life coaching journey experience and I was in community, I didn't want to be in that community. I could not wait to be by myself. Here I am with, I think it was 21 other people. And it took a lot before I was able to break. As a matter of fact, I didn't break. Somebody broke me. One of my sisters who was like, "You're gonna be my friend whether you want to or not," which led me to opening myself up to other people. But I was more than happy to go through the experience by myself without having to enter. Every time we had to interact with one another, I was like, I don't want to talk to these people. I don't want to do these activities. Let me figure it out by myself. Don't work like that. And so, if you are looking to heal in community, the evolved community is on Mighty Networks. That is the link to join. It is free to join. And then there are different membership levels. There is the Valley, which is open to everyone. There is the Summit, which is a membership that affords different opportunities, different experiences. And then there is the Summit. The Summit is where I do my one-on-one coaching. I am back to doing one-on-one coaching. We create what that looks like together. And I'm grateful to be back in that. Oh, my schedule is changing, and that affords me even more time to do healing work. And so I'm going to reinvest in doing Reiki. I'm going to reinvest in doing postpartum doula work. There are a lot of things coming down the pike, and I'm grateful that the shift has happened so that I have more time to do that. So if you join the community, you can see all of the things that are going on. And this is the place where the work will be living at the end of this year. It is 100% possible that I'm going to shut down my YouTube channel and do everything through this portal. And so, if you have enjoyed our conversations, if you have enjoyed learning together, then it's going to be shifting into this space. And I'm grateful for those of you who have already signed up. I am grateful for your time and attention. I did not see our beloved tea time on today. Doesn't mean that she wasn't, or they doesn't mean that they weren't, just because they didn't comment. But today was because of a request. You too, Giselle, was because of a request from her about reparenting. So if you have a request about a particular focus, join the Evolve community. That is the best way to connect with me now. And perhaps we will create a mama meditation around it. Thank you so much, each and every one of you who showed up today. Um, I love y'all. We will be back next Sunday. We will do a reflection about reparenting Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Evolved community. So, like I said, it's free to join. So, if you want to join us on Wednesday evenings, do so through this link right here. I love y'all. Thank you so much for participating today. And if there's anything that I can do to support you through the week, just let me know. Okay. I love y'all. Have a great rest of your Sunday. I love y'all. Bye. First, I got to type it. Ah, love y'all. Bye.